Good to go.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, June 24th, 2024 meeting of the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee. The last time we met was 3 months ago, and that's what we'd said we'd probably meet quarterly, so here we are. And we're here to get updates on where things are at and to make a few decisions about some changes to scopes and to some deadlines that we need to start either setting or realizing that we need to set them soon. We need to have that happen at some point, maybe today. We have 5 members in chambers. Deborah Dawson's excused. I think Mike Sigler might be joining us by Zoom at some point. Okay, great. So that'd be 6 members. Okay, are there any changes to the agenda? I just wanted to add the one item about the Varna Community Association that had come in as a last-minute change. I mean, it came in on Friday, so I just sent it around and figured as long as we're meeting, we might as well discuss it. I don't have a printout on that, though, so we'll work on that later. Let's go up to the minutes approval then. So we have the minutes from March 25th, 2024. And also, last minute, I had sent around a bunch of changes. I've also printed those out and put those on the desk in front of you. Brittany, I don't know if you know, or anybody know how this works. Do we have to move the original minutes and then amend them, or? Okay. Yeah, so is there anyone that would be willing to move the minutes, either my amended version or the original? You guys decide. Amended? Okay, thank you. And you're seconding the amendment. Okay, discussion. Any discussion of the minutes? All right, let's have a vote then. All in favor? Okay, Mike Sigler in favor. Very good. All right, thank you. The minutes carry. Next up, contracting updates. Information item, contracting progress as of June 14th. We have Tracy Verrier from the MRB Group. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning. So in your packet, there was the written contracting progress update, and what I did this time was kind of showed how things have moved since March, the last time that you had an update. So as you can see, Samantha and the finance team have been working very hard to get additional dollars out the door. So there's been a good deal of additional funding dispersed. As of June 14th, we're almost at 50% dispersed, which I think is very exciting. And so at this point, or as of June 14th, we were up to almost $3.2 million had been dispersed. There had been a few programs that since our last meeting had underspent or withdrawn. Since our last meeting, Alcohol and Drug Council of Tompkins County is essentially being terminated due to changes in their operation. That amount was $25,514, and then South Hill School Age Program underspent by $510, and Newfield Public Library underspent by $688. So that means right now there's an unallocated amount of $26,712 that is available for reallocation. And then also in the packet, there's just an update on where projects are in their disbursement process. So some of the ones so there's like a couple here that we know they've spent their money, but they haven't had funding dispersed yet. Those are working through the process. So not everything that has a 0 is like, we've been doing a lot of follow-up with folks. So like Cornell Cooperative Extension, we're waiting on some additional paperwork from them. I think Ithaca Fire Department is going through the approval process right now for theirs. So there are a number of these that have requested money, and we're just working on, or Samantha and Finance are working on the disbursement. So this is just a good overview of where all the projects stand in the disbursement process. And I think that about covers it. Are there unless there's any questions?
Questions for Tracy? So I just wanted a couple of clarifying things. The projects that were withdrawn, that all happened, that happened quite a while. These aren't new since our last meeting, right? That's just a cumulative?
Only the one is new. The Alcohol and Drug Council is new since the last meeting.
Okay.
The other two were previous, and that money has already been reallocated to admin.
Right. And what was the dollar amount for the Alcohol and Drug Council?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to put it there. 25,514.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Anything else for Tracy at this time? Tracy will be back with us later in the meeting, so this is not your last chance. Okay, thank you. I would say things are going very well. I mean, that's what it looks like when I look at these numbers. All right.
I guess one question, this seems so silly, but on the project disbursement summary, there's this one glaring bright red box that a single extra penny was dispersed to one of the organizations. Can we just like...
Clear that out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Call it a wash. Okay. As long as we can do that, no problem. Okay, reporting and vouchering update, project disbursement summary. Or there's no name attached to it? I don't know. You want to come back to it?
The vouchering, do you?
We can come back to you. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to catch you off guard. I don't know exactly what it means myself. So we have a couple of projects to discuss. Let's start with the one we added in today, which is Varna Community Association. I just gave everyone the printout of this email that was sent just a couple of days ago. So the Varna Community Association was awarded $20,000. They've spent $16,000 and change. And they've done, I guess they've done everything they said they were going to do, or that they still want to do. They want to be able to spend the rest of their money, but still on the building, but on a different, something that wasn't in their original scope, to put in an alarm system. And so I thought it was a big enough change to bring to the committee. So anybody have thoughts about what to do, what we want to do in response to them asking us to let them spend that money in a different way? Randy.
I'm in agreement to let them do that.
Veronica.
I think I am too, but for the record and my memory, could someone remind us what the original scope of the project was and what they did do with the rest of the money? They have like one line quoted here, but I don't remember the rest.
Tracy, you able to do this one?
Yeah, so their original application included some updates to the community kitchen, which they made some of those, although some of the equipment, the pricing changed drastically and they weren't able to complete that. That's part of why they're a little bit underspent. But they did make some updates to like the countertops and some of the kitchen space. They were able to, sorry, what else was in there? Just pulling up the application right now. Okay, so they had some income donations, community center. So they had in their original application some family-focused activities and resources, which is not what they ended up allocating the funds to. They got a partial award, so they were going to do some programming, some kitchen upgrades. That's what the original application was for. And those kitchen upgrades included some equipment, like I said, that wasn't able to be acquired, some updating the countertops to make them more sanitary. And that's more or less it. That was going to enable a some small businesses to use the kitchen.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Susan, I heard you say
I
something.
was going to say I would support this.
Very good. Travis, any thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think it seems like a worthwhile request, and I would support it. I do know that there's a kind of this gray area or this fine line of what people put in for and then wanting to change things or spend things differently. So, at some point, like I think we have to address what walks up to that line, and then what kind of decision do we make so that we're not saying no to some and yes to others because we like the idea. But I think this fits into the scope of improvements to be able to do more things with the building. So I would say yes.
Thank you. Mr. Sigler, anything you want to weigh in on?
No, it sounds great. No, I would vote for it, so.
Okay, great. Me also, I support this. I think it makes the building stronger, and it really goes right back to what I think the whole point of this project was, which is to strengthen local organizations so they can continue to go forward and do their work. All right, let's have a vote then. All in favor of accepting this Varna Community Association change of scope? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next one up is Cuba International. So their project was for a farm, to establish a farm with immigrant families and housing and I guess some education as well and business venture, kind of all wrapped up into one big project. They have land that they have already purchased in the town of Danby, but they are waiting for all the permits they need and approvals that they need to do this project. So I reached out to them a few weeks ago and let them know that we were coming up to these deadlines. And just for the record, since we're at a meeting, the first deadline that we're facing is December 31st. Since this is ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money, there's a whole bunch of rules that go with it and deadlines. And this December 31st deadline is the money needs to be obligated by then. We can't change it after that. Now, it means if we obligate it and then on January 15th we find out that the project can't go to completion, that money is gone. We can't get it back. And that's our concern. Nobody wants to give money back that we can use locally for good projects. So that's the situation we're in. So I reached out to Cuba to remind them of all this and that they were coming up on these deadlines, and that, I know that to get a town's approval for things like site plan approval and septic and all the things that they have to get, that takes a lot of time. And we can't let them go up to December 30th without knowing whether they're good to go or not, because that'll be too late to turn around and reuse that money for something else. So that's kind of my little summary of where we're at. And just one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to everybody else, is that in discussions internally and with the town of Danby, we set up a proposed set of deadlines for this particular project, which would be August 30th. We would need to hear an indication from the town of Danby that they anticipate approval. And what that probably means is something that they actually do. The planning board would issue something called preliminary site approval. So that's probably what we'd be looking for. And then October 31st, formal town of Danby approval, so final site plan approval. That's what we came up with internally to give us enough confidence that we would know in advance that we were going to be able to use this money and they were going to be able to use this money, that it wouldn't get lost. Okay, thoughts, questions, comments? Randy.
Do we know if Cuba International has submitted their site plan? How long ago was that, and where are we in that?
Their last submittal to the town of Danby was February 1st.
It does take a long time.
Yes, but the town of Danby asked them, my understanding is they asked them for more information, and Cuba hired some consultants like engineers and project developers and such, and those entities are working through the material that they want to submit to the town. It just hasn't been submitted. So the town of Danby was pretty clear that the ball is in the court of Cuba since February 1st.
Okay, so the deadline of August 30th, would that also be an indication from the town of Danby that they've received all the information they need to make a decision, or?
More than that, it would be preliminary site plan approval.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Veronica.
Do we know by when the town of Danby Planning Board needs to have all the information they requested in order to maybe do preliminary site plan approval by August 30th?
Yes. So I met with the Danby town planner and asked them exactly that question. What would it take for them to meet these deadlines? They would need to get their preliminary site plan approval at the August planning board meeting, which means they would need to get their material to the town of Danby mid to late July, which is a pretty tight deadline. And I let Cuba International know everything I had learned. And I also even asked them, does this sound right to you? Is there anything in here that I'm saying that doesn't sound right? And they didn't try to correct anything I said. So I don't know if that means they accept my analysis or not. But Mike Sigler, sorry, I'm not used to these. I've never used them.
Well, you kind of answered my question, I guess. I mean, as long as Cuba International is aware of all these, because you had said they were internal deadlines. So I didn't know if we had made those deadlines known to Cuba and kind of what their response is. Like, I mean, they do understand. I'd like to drive home to the group that the clock is ticking kind of idea.
So that is exactly why I sent them this info. The clock is ticking. And I did give them those 2 dates I just gave you. And what I told them was, this is going to be discussed at the June 24th committee meeting. If you give me one moment, I can get their response. Thank you so much for keeping me appraised of these fast approaching deadlines and the requirements associated with the funding of aspects of the project. I'm including others who are involved in moving this ball forward. I will circle back to you after I discuss the content of your email with them and give you some definitive answers to your important questions. Thank you for reaching out to me for more clarity. And the people that were CC'd on that email are their project development person, I'm not sure if that's the right title, and I think an engineer. So that was the response that I got from them. Any other thoughts? Randy?
I like the project. I always did. I hope it does move forward. But does it make sense for us to tell them that if preliminary approval is not given on August 30th, then we're going to pull back the money, or is there a different date we should be giving them to say, at this is our deadline?
I mean, that is what this is, a proposed deadline of the site plan approval, or we have to take the money back, but that's just a proposal.
Okay. You mean on August 30th, if it's not done, then in our next meeting, we would make that determination? Or?
Yeah. I'm going to pause the discussion here for a second. Could one of you discuss a little bit about why we need lead time, why we can't go till December 30th?
Yeah, I was going to raise my hand and ask if we could talk about that, because so if we have to, rather than lose the funds, of course, we want to reallocate those funds to a project that benefits the county. And to do that, we're going to have time to either enter into another contract, if, depending on what the committee decides to do, we haven't talked about that yet, but if the committee decides that we are going to reallocate these funds to projects that are in the county, I would recommend that we're using those on our capital projects that we have, maybe being able to replace some of the highway equipment as outlined in their project approval request form that recently came to F&I. And if that's the case, it does take some time to go through the state contracts to be able to bid that out. And we're even going to be pushing it just a bit, waiting until the end of August to make that. So I think that's kind of what you're asking me, Dan. That's our concern, is that we're not going to have enough time to get those funds back out the door.
Mandy.
So the thought is that, you know, if a project like this doesn't go through by August 30th, the county needs 4 months to figure out how to reallocate it to ourselves?
Yeah, it could take up, depending on what we have to do, because we either have to go through a state contract, or we have to go out to bid, or we have, we have to make sure that we're following all the municipal rules and regulations to be able to reallocate those funds. And then it takes time just to purchase the equipment or whatever it is that we decide we're going to use those funds for.
So part of that doesn't make sense to me. Okay. So let's say that at the end of September, we said, okay, well, we're going to reallocate these funds. Mm-hmm. I thought that we had to say that these funds are going to be reallocated by the end of the year, but we can spend them in 25 up to 26. So why would you need to, if we just said we're going to spend this on equipment, yep, and we voted to do that, why would we have to do the transaction this year?
So when we're talking about equipment, it's not necessarily, it's a good question, Randy, because it's not necessarily a contract. When you're going out to purchase equipment, we're actually doing it through a PO, so that's something that would have to, we don't have that. It's not going to be entered into a contract by the end of the year. It'll actually be a purchase, and that takes time for that procurement to go through. So it is something that Samantha's going to check with our accountants on whether or not we can, whether one of the purchase offers or a PO can be considered an actual contract, but there's a question about whether that is true or not. So we want to make sure that, again, that we're able to use these funds.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Veronica?
There was, I think this deadline stuff makes sense to me. It also sounds like this is almost the inverse of what Cuba International themselves is up against, in that like the process of getting through municipal regulations takes a bunch of time. And I think we had some discussion, well, I'm not sure about this, but if we had to reallocate this money for the purposes of complying with the American Rescue Plan guidelines, could we do that, but then keep the same amount set aside from somewhere else in order to potentially go forward with this project on a different timeline?
That's a great question. I want to address that, because that was going to come up sooner or later. So this and the other project we're going to be talking about, the hospital, we can, if we want, say, you know, we've coming too close to this deadline, we have to take this money back, but then sometime in the future, decide to fund this project or any of these projects. If we do that, it's a vote of the legislature, right? It's a new vote, it's a new process. So it's completely doable, but just so you're aware, it'd have to go through something else. Just a regular resolution, an OTR, whatever, I'm not sure, but.
If you don't mind, just to add to that. And also, this has to be a service that the county has chosen to provide, and it would have to go through the procurement process, which means it has to go out for bid and allow others to be able to provide that service as well. So this doesn't necessarily mean that Cuba would be the successful bidder. If you'd have to identify what service you're trying to support.
Right. When I sent out a little bit of this in the email last week, and Deborah said, yes, what about the gifting restrictions? And that's something that I haven't had time yet to talk with our county attorney about, to see if I can understand that a little more. But one way or the other, there's probably a way to do it. It's just not automatic like this is. Everything's been approved for all this. ARPA guidelines are there. we already voted for. You know, it's automatic, so it would not be automatic anymore. Okay, so we have to decide, do we want to say that this is our deadline as is printed on the sheet in front of you, August 30th, for preliminary approval, October 31st, final approval? Are we willing are we ready to vote on that?
Well, we've lost Sigler, so let's hold on a sec.
Sure.
But actually, it's because I'm thinking, I would love to, I guess I just don't want to give up on this project. I also wonder, is there any way we can help them along with their process somehow? Not in like sending people to go out in the site and do whatever site plan work for them, but I don't know, does the county have any kind of communication leverage to bring parties together? I'm not sure like, I don't know what the development process really looks like, but I can imagine just my sense of timelines of projects running through like the City of Ithaca Planning Board. They come up again and again, months in between. So I assume it's a lot of work that has to be done. But is there anything we can do to help expedite it? Maybe not.
I'm not aware of anything beyond, I actually feel like what I did was kind of helpful in really getting, at least for me, clarifying what the town of Danby needed and laying out their deadlines. There's something else I didn't mention, at least here today, which is the town of Danby indicated to me that this project will also need approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals, probably. So it's just one more step they have to take.
Yeah. So how would the Board of Zoning Appeals fit into these deadlines?
I would think the same, right? If they don't have permission or permits in the right time frame, we have to do something different with the money. That's how I would view it. I don't think, yeah. I'm not sure they can get their final approval. I'm not sure what order things have to happen. Susan?
I just want to make sure I understand, because I also very much like this project. And it sounds like if we decide these are the deadlines and they can't do it, then at some point in the future, we would take it to the full legislature to support their project. But they would still need to go through the process of getting all these approvals, right? Right. They would, no matter what, they need to get the town board and all of that. So in some ways, I mean, I don't want to lose the money, so I think it's really important that we set deadlines, but also acknowledge that we believe in the project and find a way to support them and advocate to the full legislature for that.
So to answer your questions, yes, they would still need all those approvals, even if they don't fit in our deadline. And yes, it could come back, but it wouldn't be automatic. It would take a legislator to say, I'm going to do this. Travis.
But it's not just that it would take a legislator to say, I want to do this. We would have to decide it's a service we want to provide, and then it will go out to bid. And so it could be somebody else that fits the RFP, and it may not be Cuba. It could be a whole different agency, business, whatever, filling out the RFP, and it could be somebody else that we ended up voting on to receive the funds if we decided to have anybody receive the funds at all, correct?
That would be my understanding, yeah. It's not, I guess that's what part of what I mean by it's not automatic. You know, it would have to be a whole new process. Yeah. Other discussion?
I agree with Susan and Veronica. I would love to see Cuba get the funding for this, but I don't want to see that kind of money not get used. So I would support the deadline, and then I would support whatever efforts later on. I would hope that if we ended up going that route, Cuba was actually the ones who got the money and not somebody else. But I certainly think it's a worthwhile project, but I don't want to give any money back.
Okay.
I agree with Travis.
I definitely feel like the will of the committee, and I think the minutes could reflect that assuming we vote to accept these deadlines, that we also are sending a clear message that the legislators support this project and are going to look for if it falls through for now, we're going to look for other ways to make it happen. Does that sound right?
My comment is it may not be guaranteed that we're allowed to do it. We don't know that yet, right? But I support it as well.
Ready for a vote then? All in favor of establishing these deadlines for this project, please raise your hand. Thank you. Mike Sigler, that's a yes for Mike Sigler also. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next project is the Cayuga Health Systems, the hospital. We refer to it different ways, Cayuga Medical Center, all kinds of things. I think Cayuga Health Systems is the most proper, but it's okay. We have allocated $1.5 million from this fund to go to their crisis stabilization center. And they have optimism that they can get their necessary state permission by the end of the year, but it's far from a sure thing. And so it's the same question as we just did with Cuba International. How late can we go before we run the risk of losing this money? And what deadline do we want to establish? And yes, so that's our questions. Internally, we came up with a deadline of, I deleted it from your paper, I'm sorry, it should have been August 1st?
Yeah.
So August 1st. Is that right? No, that's not. We said we would check in with them on August 1st, then October 1st was their deadline, no?
We told them it'd be tentative as of October 1st. We really didn't give them.
Can you use the mic, please?
We told them that August 1st we'd check in with them, and we did not guarantee October 1st, but we said that we'll take it under consideration.
Okay. For the purposes of voting, I feel like we need to have a clear statement. Is it wrong to say that October 1st is the deadline?
I think so.
That's a good statement or not a good statement?
I don't think it's a good statement. I think their deadline should be the same as Cuba's.
I had a feeling this might come up. The reason that we're looking at different deadlines is because they each have to go through different processes. So that's fine if we want to keep the same deadlines, but I just wanted to explain why we're picking different deadlines for different. Cuba is getting permission from the town of Danby, Cayuga Health Systems from the state. So if we did the same as Cuba, which date are we looking at? August 30th or October 31st? October 31st, I'm told, is too late. For and feel free to jump into this. Allocating the $74,000, if we have to reallocate the $74,000 from Cuba, that's one process. If we have to reallocate $1.5 million in 2 months, that's a different process.
Yeah, that's a real concern to try to do that
So I'm open to suggestions. Randy?
I like the August 30th deadline. We should be consistent about that. I oppose this particular one, and this was one of my concerns, that if they couldn't do it, then now all those entities that had applied for things were cut off. So that was one of my issues there. I do hope they come through with it, but I think the timeline's tough. Memory serves, and I could be completely wrong about this, there was a whole scoring model that was done for all the applications. And we talked that if money became available, we'd move down the list. So I just wanted, is that what we agreed to?
Yes, and we will get to this more in depth on agenda item number 7, discussing regarding available funds and what to do with them.
Okay.
So why don't you hold it, remind me that question.
Okay, great, thanks.
I think Mike Sigler, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I had to brag about this week. I'll share the thread with you guys. I'll send it out. It just seems to me like this has gotten, the problem is we're trying to kind of combine a couple of different things. And it stems, I mean, how to kind of put this? I mean, I would like to see us just go after this mental health stabilization unit at this point. I think the state is becoming just too difficult to work with in what we want to get done. And I think the hospital needs to just kind of go after the mental health service. So I think maybe we actually probably should meet as a legislature with the hospital as opposed to just talking about the money. Because I frankly think that this is desperately needed. Whether we give them or if we give it to them later, I think it has to get done. So. And I think you've now lost me.
So we did meet with the hospital last week to discuss all this funding. It's a little complicated, and I can share or as appropriate, but
Okay, hang on one second.
oh,
We need to take like a 5-minute recess.
okay. I don't know if it sounds like people out there in virtual land cannot hear us, but we're taking a 5-minute recess.
Good to go.
Okay, we are back in session. We had I guess the power went out for a moment, so that's what caused the stream to stop. So we're back. Sorry for the disruption. We're in the middle of discussing what, if any, deadline we want to set for Cayuga Health Systems. And I do want to say one more thing before we continue, is that the Cayuga Health Systems may have some other plans of what they want to do with this crisis stabilization center. And I'm not sure that that's public information. I'm not sure it's relevant exactly. What we're here to decide, what we do know is that they don't have permission from the state yet for the project that we authorized. And they're optimistic that they can get it by the end of the year, but we're maybe a little less optimistic. And either way, we need to put in a safety rail in case they don't get them in time. So that's kind of where we're at. And I don't know exactly what the last person speaking was or what they were saying, but here we are. Who would like to say something? Okay, when we had been proposing the deadlines, we had come up with an August 31st, 30 days, yeah, which would be the same as Cuba. I'm pretty sure, I'm just trying to replay that meeting with them in my mind, but I think there is virtually no chance that they will get permission from the state by August 30th. They were just, they're waiting for, I just think it's virtually no chance. Randy.
Could Tracy kind of remind me what this whole project was? I mean, it's a crisis stabilization unit. Has nothing to do with the detox center at all. It's a totally separate issue.
Right.
So I remember reading about it, but I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but I just, aren't they, if I remember correctly, they're applying for 2 additional grants besides this one.
Yeah, so the Crisis Stabilization Center, the last time they told us, which is at least a year ago, they estimated that project was going to be like $9 million. So our $1.5 million was just part of it. It was not the whole thing by any stretch. And they needed a permit from the state to operate this facility. Did you want to hear a little more about what that project was?
I remember reading about it. If I remember correctly, there was 2 other grants that they had applied for. I don't know if they've received those. So if they're all lined up and the chances are like slim to none that they're all going to happen, so.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't need, right, that is a factor, you're right, you're absolutely right.
So they had originally had two different budgets, essentially. One if they received the other funding and one if they did not. And my understanding is that they did not receive that other funding that was contemplated. So the secondary option was opted for, and that was just the Crisis Stabilization Center.
So they feel strongly that between, so what I'm hearing you say is by the end of the summer, there's just no way they'll get anything back from the state. So that 2 months would give them an opportunity to hear back from the state? Is that what you're saying?
They said that to us, I don't know. They said that they deal with the state all the time. They have a good relationship with them. They know that the state wants these services to happen so that at the point where they actually, that they were actually able to put in their final paperwork, they believe it'll be, they said, a 30-day turnaround. I don't know.
Does that give you all enough time to reallocate that money? I know you were saying that August 31st was tough to do it just for equipment. That's 1.5 million.
Yeah, I would say that it's concerning to me and to Samantha to try to come up with a way to reallocate those, because that's a large amount of money to turn around. I do understand, though, that they were pretty confident that they were going to be able to come up with a plan. But it's our collective responsibility to make sure that those funds get utilized for the sake of the county.
Randy.
So let's say that it is an August 30th deadline and they are not able to get approval. If I remember correctly from your email, we could say, okay, well, we're going to take that money. We're going to still allocate it to mental health, whatever category you want, and put that money, take that money and put it there? Or what if this money isn't spent, what can legally the county do with it to secure it?
It would take, you can answer too, but it would take an act of the legislature for us to say, this is what we're going to do. Yeah, whatever that is.
Okay, and it'd have to be specific.
And spent by a certain time.
We'd have to be very specific. This money's going to be used for this, right? Because you got to obligate it by the end of the year.
Correct.
We're going to use it for that.
Right.
And it could be whatever we choose that falls within the ARPA requirements.
Right.
I'm sorry, Randy, I misunderstood your question. I was saying that we could do that same thing that we discussed with Cuba, which is to take the money back from the county, and then in the future, some legislators would need to say, now we want to give them funding for this project when the deadlines are off. That's not what you were asking. You were asking, can we do something in the ARPA guidelines with that money before the end of the year?
Correct.
It would be we would have to allocate those funds to something, and it would have to be something that we could get a contract for, so.
Now, if it was the county itself that says we're going to take this money and we're going to put it on our capital plan, like you did with prior money, you could do that as well.
As long as it's contracted. So, for example, I'm just going to use an example because I don't have one readily available. We haven't had that conversation yet, but so let's just say that we needed to contract for design schematic services for one of the buildings. Now you've got a contract for X number of dollars that you can then align the ARPA funds to cover. So that's what I'm talking about. So you just have to make sure that you have a contract that's aligning those funds for a project that's actually going to take place before the end of 2026.
Okay, to follow up to that, so I'm just a little confused. So the county received roughly $20 million from this account. We put $14 million into our capital plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you just take that money and say we're going to use it for green energy or whatever, I forgot what we decided to use for it, but it wasn't a contract done.
No, but we're at the point now that we have to have a contract. We have to have these funds contracted by the end of the year for something that has to be completed before the end of 2026, correct? Anything I'm saying wrong, but.
Now, new guidelines came through beginning of the, end of last year, beginning of this year, that everything has to be contracted by the end of January 2024.
Okay, great, that helps. Thank you. Appreciate it.
December.
Yeah.
Right, so we originally did say, yes, we're putting in whatever, 14 million into green energy, but since those 2 years have passed, we've been contracting. Is that accurate?
That's correct, yeah. Much of it's been spent.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to need to vote on a date. What date shall we pick?
For me, it'd be by what date does Bridget recommend? I mean, Norma recommend?
I think I agree with that. You have to tell us what's workable.
So from a conservative standpoint, my concern is that if we go past August, we're really going to be scrambling to try to figure it out. But, so that's my conservative brain saying I would hold on. I would try to get this done, or at least have a real solid plan before the end of August.
Andy?
I still like the same deadline as Cuba, but is there any reason we can't tell people that did submit applications that there might be money available? And so I'm trying to the deadline so we can say now, before the deadline, that, and it could be the county as well. I mean, county departments or whatever, they could say, all right, well, this is what contracts we think we can get done in this. So you're asking them for the information now.
You're suggesting give that money to other projects? Is that what you're saying?
Potentially.
That's item 7. We will get there.
Okay, all right. So I'm just saying the deadline could be this for Cuba Medical, but we could start our own process internally. So we're not waiting to start the process if it doesn't go through. So that's my thought.
Yeah. I would, it's being compared to the deadlines for Cuba. I mean, Cuba, we're giving them 2 deadlines, kind of like an indication that's, we think it's going to happen, and then it really has to happen by that date. And like I said, I think if we have a final deadline of August 31st for Cuba Health Systems, I think that's just the end of that. That's the end of the project. I don't think they can possibly meet that deadline. So, is there room for that kind of dual deadlines? Like, we really need to know. We really want to read the tea leaves by such and such a date, and here's our final date? Or if it's August, it's just too late?
No. I mean, I think it's possible it's possible that we can find a way to use those funds after that. I mean, if you all want to wait until October to see if they are able to come in, I mean, we can do our best to try to get everything lined up in case that doesn't come to fruition. That's the best we can. It's just going to be it's a risk that we will do our best not to make sure that it gets done. I see Lisa's on as well. I don't know if she has anything that she wants to add to it, but we'll do the best we can to have everything aligned to make that work. If you all want to give them until October.
I agree with everything Norma's saying. I don't disagree.
I just want to be clear what it is you're saying. You'd be much more comfortable with August 30th.
I would be more comfortable to have a little more time to work through, because if we have to purchase something, if we have to go out for bid for something, I mean, all of these things take time. Actually, if we had to go out for bid at the end of August, I doubt that would ever happen. We have to find, and we've been working on that. We have to have kind of things lined up that we can spend the funding on. We do have a project approval request forms that have been submitted, so we do know of things that could probably get done and be spent But again, we have to make sure that all of the contracts, everything has been signed and ready to go by the end of the year, and we don't have some of those. It would take some time to get those approvals.
Travis?
To me, it seems like this project, if we decided to use this money on county needs, and we built in ample time to make sure that happens and all the money gets spent down, and then Cayuga Health Systems came back later and said, hey, we have everything together. It seems like, at least in my opinion, that this one would be, if the county said, the legislature said, sure, let's do that, and you put out an RFP, that there's not many other folks that would apply to do that service, given the size and the scope of it. So it seems like it would be more possible for Cayuga Health Systems to end up doing this project from county money, especially if that 1.5 was spent on county stuff. So we weren't coming up with the money from somewhere else. It was money we didn't have to spend, that we could ultimately do this project. Well, Cuba, there could be other people, other agencies that apply. Doesn't seem like there's that many other agencies that had the scope of work to be able to apply for that. So it still could get done. We know that we need it in the county. That one seems easier to figure out later when they have all their ducks in a row than Cuba.
Okay, August 30th. Shall we vote on that as a deadline? All right, all in favor of August 30th as the Cayuga Health Systems deadline? Okay, that looks unanimous. Very good. All right, and then one more deadline before we go on to the other agenda item. Well, sorry, no, never mind, I've added that in separately. Let's go to item 7 that Randy's been wanting to get to, and that is, what do we do with money that is left over? Which could be a little bit, could be a lot. We just don't know quite yet. So one possibility, I think, Randy, you were kind of hinting at this, or some version of this, is we can just open it up again to everybody, to the world. That is a really big, I'm just going to right away try to kill that one, because that's a really big project, and I'm not sure we have the capacity or the time to do it. The next is that we could look at the projects that already received awards, and I think maybe that's what you were getting at.
Or where the next one's down the list. I thought that's what we talked about.
All right, right, or the next one's down the list. Right. And then, I guess a third possibility is that the county just takes all the money back, whatever's left over, and reassigns it. So before we get into each one of those, are there any other possibilities of what we could do with the leftover money? Norma.
I don't have any possibilities of what you're going to do with the leftover money, but what I would like to say is we're in the process right now of, so county administration will take the responsibility and we'll do whatever you all want us to do. But we are in the middle of a 2-budget year, and we have 3 people who do this work. And those same 3 people are the folks that will have to help Tracy get these other grants through the process. So I just wanted to let you know that's a fact. So, but we will do what you need us to do.
We definitely need to keep that in mind, that we only have limited capacity. It doesn't mean we can't do anything, but we just got to, let's not think too big, I guess, is what I'm saying. Susan.
So could it be applied to some of the initiatives that we have been talking about? Shelter, some of those kinds of projects?
You're asking if we could take this leftover money from here and use it for a separate county project?
Yeah, so for the county to take it back and then to apply it toward, we have a lot of irons in the fire right now in terms of spending money. Could we then apply it for that, or does it have to go through the ARPA process again?
Well, I think the answer is it has to be contractable by the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have to go through Community Recovery Fund, if that's what you're asking,
Yeah.
Susan. It just has to be an eligible project.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say something about going further down the list, and which is that these applications are a year and a half old. So it's hard to say whether those projects are still what they are. It doesn't mean we can't do that, but that's just one other factor to take into account. Thoughts? Travis?
I think if we are looking at the possibility of either one of these folks or applications being able to come back to the full county to get funding in the future, if we take back this money, it needs to go to something that the county has to spend money on for the county, so that if we end up giving them the money later, the county is not at a deficit, it's a wash. And to me, we can get county stuff done, still get these projects done, and it's a wash to the budget.
So you're saying, I just want to make sure I understand, you're saying that whatever little left, not the big $1.5 million, but the little leftover monies, you would also have that take the county back? Have the county take it back?
I'm talking about these two, the money from these two in particular. If there's other little monies, I don't know how much that is, but I'm talking about these two bigger. Right. I know one is much bigger than the other, but I'm talking about pretty big, these two.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Tracy, can you again clarify for us how much loose change we're talking about?
Yes. So right now, because of the Alcohol and Drug Council and then the two underspent projects, there's $26,712. The Cuba project is a little over 74,000. So right now there's 26,700.
Right. Okay, so we have two projects that we're waiting on, right? But then we also have $26,712 that we need to do something with, and there might be a little more later, a few more underspents or that kind of thing. But not, tell me if I'm speaking incorrectly, I don't think we anticipate a lot more money coming into those. So I think the question I'm asking is, what do we do with the $26,712? Do we reapply it to current, do we open it back up to our current list? Do we go further down the list? Do we just take the money back as a county? Susan?
I liked what Travis was proposing, that that amount we put towards countywide projects. And I think Norma talked about highway department equipment. I mean, could it go to that? Maybe it wouldn't cover the whole thing, but it would, and it's something that could be contracted by the end of the year.
Right.
Other thoughts? Randy?
I'm not opposed to what Travis suggests, except that the county is very stingy and does not like to support, in my mind, a lot of programming in rural areas. So a lot of these people submitted these requests, and it was an opportunity that's not going to come again. And so I don't know the laws on gifting. I'm concerned about that. Because there may be a proposal that was on that list that still is important to those entities that submitted them. And for us to just take the money and spend it on our stuff, and our reserves grow. We don't want to touch our reserves. I hear that every day. I think the opportunity is lost to those people that submitted those requests. And they could be old. Actually, they're probably at least 2 years old because they were done in like a year, 2 years ago. Right?
It started September.
Yeah, so
right.
they're old. Right? So,
yeah.
So I get that we may not be able to fund any of these things. But I think it's an opportunity lost for those people, for many of the people that submitted those requests, because they wouldn't be able to get funds from the county any other way. So that's my concern.
Other thoughts?
So that 26,000, I would be open to looking further down the list of folks who submitted. When I was talking about the money going to the county, I really was talking about just Cuba and Cuba Med, because there's so much. But that 26,000 that was underspent or came back already, I wouldn't be opposed. Could we have time at this point to check in with some of those other agencies to see if those needs are still the same? if they've changed a little bit.
Oh, man.
And then, do we have to take a recess?
Yes, we do.
Maybe we need to invest more money in our grid.
Rob's finger, thumbs up. Yeah.
I can still hear you.
Can you see us?
Yep, I know.
Tracy, can you see us also?
Yes, I can see you.
Tracy can, oh, there we go. Okay.
So strange.
Thank you.
His board that controls his cameras.
Okay, so we need to take a short break. We will come back as quickly as we can.
Rob, do you want us to just move over to that table so we don't have to worry about this right now? Okay, thank you.
Move over there.
Okay.
Okay.
Where's your route?
Tracy, can you still hear us? How do we put the mic? Tracy, you able to hear us still?
Yeah, you're far away though.
We're working on it.
Great.
Tracy, while we're kind of waiting, can you call up the master list and tell us what would be the next on the list when we come back into the meeting?
Oh. Let's see.